Texas. Okay, now recording.
All
So
right,
we
we
got
rolling.
yeah, we're rolling, of course. I get edit this stuff. Uh, it, God, this is okay. Here, you could start us off with an introduction, good sir.
All right, what is up, and welcome back to the Thinking Cap podcast. We are here, episode 2. Let's go. Austin here,
Yes, Romeo here,
and
and
yeah.
today we're
First
going to
off,
be
yeah.
talking
Actually,
about.
first
Hmm?
off, how are you doing? Before we dive in.
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good yourself. How are you, good sir?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Yeah, pretty busy week. Had a crazy weekend. One of my friends had her 30th birthday, and we decided to go to her place, drink a lot, and then go out clubbing in New York. So that was my weekend, and then the rest of the weekend just spent recovering.
I have been repairing my family's deck, wood deck. I called it a nightmare deck because, it's
Oof.
your typical wood deck or whatever, whatnot. But the problem is once the wood gets rotten from weathering or whatnot, you have to either tear the whole thing down or replace the boards individually.
Mm,
And some of the quotes we've gotten back for like composite decks, which is like composite decks are like plastic or wood or whatever, whatnot. It was like half the size of our deck. Like,
mm.
no joke, $13,000. Absolutely not.
Fuck.
Yeah,
Jeez.
I kept a straight face, but I'm like, yo, you're smoking, man. You're absolutely smoking. So, all in
Jeez.
all, for this project, we've already had a ton of tools in our garage and shed, and we spent about a couple $100 just on materials for
Mm-hmm,
wood from Home Depot and whatnot. Actually,
mm-hmm,
pretty good, and it's a nice little project.
mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Damn.
getting on to today's uh topic, we're going to be talking about, is college still worth it? A topic that
Yes.
most certainly has not been talked about more than enough. But
Mm-hmm,
still, we're going to give our hot take on it because, well, we have some pretty interesting experiences ourselves. I know myself, I have been a
mm-hmm,
student of multiple institutions because I've bounced around. Uh,
mm-hmm.
and when I was an engineering student going into his final year, hopefully. And Austin, you studied engineering as well before you changed. And I'm pretty sure we have some very similar experiences that we can talk about. So let's
Yeah.
jump on into it. So you
Yeah,
go
for sure.
first.
Yeah. So, I mean, actually diving into like, I guess a little bit of the background of this. I think we were both raised in that generation, or at least our parents' generation, where the idea was that, oh, you go to college, you get a degree, you're gonna get a good job, and then your job's secure, and then you're set for the rest of your life. And so
Yeah,
obviously raised in our childhood, we we had that same mentality. And now after we've graduated and we realize like, oh hey, the job market actually isn't that good, and everyone's saying college is a scam now, and part of us is like, oh, did we make a mistake?
ugh.
Is college still worth it? And so this is like it's like a weird transition where future generations now are wondering, is college actually worth it, or is it just a huge waste of money?
I'm gonna go ahead and answer, give my thesis. College is only worth it if
Mm-hmm.
you're studying something that's gonna make you money. And I completely agree with what you said. Um, for me, for the audience know, I was actually raised by baby boomers.
Mm-hmm.
So that old school traditional idea of going to college and getting just about any degree, not any degree, but just about
Mm-hmm.
really,
Yeah.
is your one-way ticket for financial security of getting a good job, and whatnot. So, and not to mention, quite a bit of people in my family went to college and they got technical degrees, so it was kind of already expected, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I remember going into high school and the thought was that I was like, okay, I know I'm gonna go to college, but what I'm gonna study specifically, I was literally like, hmm, I don't know. Like my uncle was or is a mechanical engineer and he was really
Mm-hmm.
pushing me to like do mechanical engineering. I'm like, I'm not smart enough. But one day in high school, one of my math professors, uh, or math teachers rather, he was teaching like high school level calculus, not AP or AB calculus.
Mm-hmm.
And some of us had stayed back to make up an assignment for trigonometry, the class we were in. And he was like, "You guys don't," he pointing to us, me and two other people. He's like, "You guys don't even have to worry about looking at this. You won't understand it."
Mm-hmm.
And and that right there, me being petty, I'm like, "Okay, fine, we'll take
Mm-hmm.
calculus." And I'm like, "You know what? Uncle, I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna study engineering." He's like, "Yes."
Mm-hmm.
Glad to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm studying decided to study engineering kind of out of pettiness and out of
Yeah.
spite.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Nice.
but out of all the different disciplines, you know that there, there are different disciplines. There's aerospace,
Mm-hmm.
mechanical, electrical, civil. Me going down the list, I was like, aerospace sounds cool, but looking at BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics, it
Mm-hmm.
seems that the job outlooks for them, they seesaw. Like
Mm-hmm.
one year they're hiring, the next year
Mm-hmm.
not so much,
Mm-hmm.
and they want people who have master's degrees. So I'm like, yeah, no, that's not gonna
Oh,
happen. I'm
interesting.
good.
Yeah.
Mechanical, I'm like, nah. And
Yeah.
ultimately, a friend of mine said that he was studying civil engineering at another college I decided to go to, and I'm like, what's that? And then bridges, roads, dams. I'm like, this is right up my alley. But before going into like which college I decided to go to, where did you, yeah, what made you want to study engineering?
Yeah. So I mean, I would say just like being Asian, the typical route is like you you're expected to get like a stable, well-paying job coming out of
Mm,
college. And the stereotype for us is that you can be an engineer, you can be a lawyer, you can be a doctor,
mm,
or stuff. Basically, just any sort of STEM major is which to be fair, those are pretty, I guess, like safe jobs. They're always in decent demand, and they require a level of like education and rigor to in order to complete and to get a job in. So I also wanted to be I also wanted to be an engineer, and then I had friends also going to the engineer. So that was kind of the expected path for me, and then I honestly, I had no idea of where I wanted to go. I applied to a handful of schools out on the West Coast, and I was actually out in Hawaii at this time. So I wanted to go away from home, but I didn't want to go too far. And so I applied a
right.
bunch of schools on the West Coast, and eventually ended up in Oregon State University. They accepted me. They gave me a good amount of money, and I was like, hey, let's send it.
They gave
Yeah,
me a good
yeah,
amount of money. Yeah,
yeah. Let's
yeah,
send it.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Right, yeah, they gave me.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I had declared at the time nuclear engineering because yeah, I was also going down the roster. I was like, I don't really want to be like everyone else. I don't want to go to a field that
exactly.
and just
Yeah, we're
yeah, and just have
contrarians.
a
We
bunch
don't.
of yeah,
We
and
don't
just
do
have
that.
like a bunch of like competition in a sense.
Mm.
So decided to pursue nuclear engineering.
To my so deciding to study engineering, and the institution for me initially that I started out was George Mason University. I originally wanted to go to Virginia Tech, and I got accepted for Virginia Tech, but it was for a different program. It
Mm-hmm.
was for like water resource conservation, and
Mm-hmm.
they were like, "This is what you could do. We could accept you for water resource conservation, and you can transfer over into the engineering program." I'm like, "Okay, cool. How long is that going to take?" That's going to take like 4 semesters. I'm like, "Well, I've already been accepted to an engineering program. It's a good distance away from home. I wanted to get away from home."
Mm-hmm.
It's a good distance away from home. They're actually cheaper, and yeah, it worked with GMU. So I want to talk about how orientation was and like actually moving in. As we talked a minute ago before we recording, we kind of had the same experience with our orientations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
With
yeah.
the
So going into orientation. I mean, I wouldn't say like the initial orientation was like that bad, but it's just going to the classes. There was sort of engineering is it's one of those, or at least I feel this way. It's one of those career paths where a lot of people want to be engineers, and rightfully so. I think or when I was going to school, people were saying like, "Oh, we need engineers. This is like a good field to go into. The job
Yeah.
market's gonna explode in like the next decade or whatever." And so I think rightfully so, a lot of people went into engineering with like that shiny object, or like, "Oh, I'm gonna be an engineer. I'm gonna change the world and do super cool things." But
Yeah.
then it's also the rigor of the courses is what really, like, for lack of a better, they like weeds out a lot of the people, is because a lot of
Right.
people aren't ready for the amount of like math and science and all these rigorous courses that you have to go through. So what they basically said was like, based on the statistics, and this is like true, that was it like only like a third of the people who declare engineering actually like make it through the
Mm.
entire 4 years.
So that's 33% that
Yeah.
even meet the requirements to declare for the specific
Hmm.
engineering field that they want to continue. Now
Yeah.
that you've declared, you've met the base classes to declare for that specific engineering
Hmm.
field or study, you still got to get through the other 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
that is what they did for us was that they got us all in a room in an auditorium. I'd say there were about 100 of us, and most of them, just for the sake of, let's say like 70% of them, they were computer science or computer slash cybersecurity, engineering or whatnot. The rest of us were probably most most of them. The rest were like mechanical or aerospace
Hmm.
engineering. Not a lot. I was like one of three civil engineers in the
Hmm.
orientation or whatever, whatnot. But they're like, okay, guys, look, about 80% of you are not going to graduate with the degree with the degree that you want to, come in
Hmm.
here with. And we all just like looked at each other like, what? We were all like snickering or whatever, like,
Hmm.
okay, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And
It's like, good
yeah,
one, guys.
yeah,
You
that's
got
that's a
me.
good one. And the coordinator, she was like the student coordinator for engineering, and she's like, "No, I'm being dead serious, you guys. Like, most of you are, I think that she was like, statistically speaking, 50% of you will finish your degree within 4 years, and the rest of the 80% or whatever, whatnot, 80% finish within six." And we were just like, okay, yeah, yeah, whatever. I was coming in with a bunch of dual enrollment credits. I think about took like 15 credit hours in high school, and let's say eight of them transferred over. So really, that's like two, maybe three classes transferred over from high school, which was nice.
Hmm.
But I remember signing up for classes. I took an 8 a.m. calculus class, because I was like, I got up earlier in high school. The classic trap. I got up earlier in high school, so this should be a breeze. It shouldn't be fine.
Hmm.
And no, it's like getting up. I remember the first day of class, there were like two people just straight up left.
Hmm.
Like straight up, two people left, um, changed their majors immediately. They're like, "Yo,
Jeez.
yeah."
Yeah.
It's literally the first day. By the
Yeah.
end of the first week, a total of like five people out of this class of, let's say, 60 people,
Hmm.
just dropped. And GMU is, if you freaking know, and if you're a friend of mine, you've heard me complain about the chemistry department. What
Hmm.
weeds people out the most, in my opinion, isn't necessarily that the classes are hard, but in my opinion, a lot of that is also contingent on the professor that you get,
Hmm.
because George Mason's chemistry department is kind of known for not being the best. I don't know how it is now, but at that time, everyone hated the chemistry department. All of my homies hate the chemistry department. And Gen Chem 1 was, I got a good lecturer, but the lab portion was what really messed people over the most. The first red flag for the lab was that when I got there were juniors and seniors in the class. Okay, which, it's like, all right, that's not necessarily a big red flag. They could be doing other majors, of course, and they just put up this class as like a prerequisite or a gen ed class. But I talked to my lab partner next to me. He had taken this class 3 times. This one lab, rather, 3 times. This was his third time, and he had to change his major from mechanical engineering to environmental engineering because if you do not pass this class within X amount of time, you're automatically kicked out of the engineering program. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts.
Jeez.
So the lecture wasn't bad, but the labs weren't hard, but what they would do is that they would dock you heavily for not following the format.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, your PA who is a grad student that's having to do their own research and teach this class, they're literally overworked and underpaid.
Mm-hmm.
They could look at it and be like, okay, I feel like your margins, the title, are not really big enough, or they're like a little too close to each other. So that's mine. Yeah, that's minus 8 points out of 75 total.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I feel as if you didn't include enough detail in your observations. Okay, well, what should I have put? I can't tell you that because that's like giving you the answer, but the lab is completed and grades are in. Yeah, but can't necessarily
Yeah.
give you the answer because you could use it again and
Mm-hmm.
we're not allowed to. Like, yo, man.
Yeah.
So uh, it it's really like a number of I can't think of how many people have had to change their major just because of that one lab, and that was the reason that class was a big reason why I changed institutions and I did a reverse transfer to community college, which
Mm-hmm.
was in hindsight now was a pretty good decision considering I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have to pay for a community college at all.
Oh, nice. Yeah. 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 I was gonna say I had a pretty similar experience. I think all students can relate that we have similar experiences with the difference in quality of instructors because you realize that not all the instructors are actually there to teach. Like a lot of them
Right.
are hired for their research and that's all they care about. And so, you throw them in a room with like 40 like shithead undergrads, they're not gonna like that. They don't really give, and also it's like they don't really care. It's like that's not what they're getting paid for. They're just something they have to do as a fulfillment, the part of
Yeah,
their
literally.
yeah.
It would even be like, what's your sometimes we would just get referred to by our numbers, like our
Oh
student
jeez.
no yeah,
Oh
yeah, like
no.
yeah, like yeah,
Oh, that's pretty
uh,
dehumanizing.
it's like 329.
Oh
The last,
jeez.
your last number is 329.
Like,
Whatever, whatnot.
this this reminds me of a bleak part of history.
Yeah, I'm like, yo, man, come on out, like, and when you go to their office, now they were better in their office hours or whatnot, which was
Hmm.
nice, but um. I remember going in for the final for Gen Chem 1 lecture, and you could just smell the fear and anxiety. It's like just
Oh
coming in and
jeez.
just radiated from the auditorium. Like I
Hmm.
remember I got up specifically. First off, you have to buy the text. You don't have to, but you have to buy the textbook that is written by the professor.
Oh yeah,
And
that's also a bunch of bullshit. And it's like freaking like you have
uh,
to get it brand new, $200, and they always attached their freaking like online course code, so you have to get the
yeah.
new version.
And I couldn't stand Harrison's. It was like it's online homework. That I forgot to do like 2 assignments before they were due, and that is the reason why I finished the lecture with a C plus instead of a B minus. But like, but going into that final, there was just like people scrambling back and forth or whatnot, people frantically going over their notes. And mind you, the people who are attending, they are not people who are slackers, so to speak, right? These
Hmm.
are, for the most part, everyone is rather type A. They're on it, especially since it is your first semester. I feel as if you're like the most focused in your first semester, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And there are people like when we started, there are people legit crying
Oh.
people crying. And I'm not joking, like, within the first 5 minutes, I saw 3 people just straight up get up and just walk out.
Oh, jeez.
I'm like, "Yo, man, what is this hellhole? Like, what is going on here?"
Mm-hmm.
And, um, and when the grades got posted or whatever or whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
um, think the grade I got was on this the final was like a C minus, and they adjusted for the curve, and they're like, if you got a C minus, you got a C plus.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, cool, passed. Um, Same thing with calculus, like calculus one, it was just more fear or whatnot, anxiety, all up in stress, and we finished it, finished with it, whatnot. But it was uh it was interesting. Now,
Mm-hmm.
going further afterwards, I was in school before the pandemic hit. After the pandemic hit, the quality of education just went into the ground and
Mm-hmm.
exploded. Like, it
Oh
was
yeah.
terrible. Like, to give you an idea of how bad it was, where people were just failing left and right, our school, and I'm pretty sure other schools did this, but they had extraordinary circumstance pass versus extraordinary circumstance satisfactory. Basically, you could opt out of having your GPA get torn to shreds if you fail the class.
Mm-hmm.
If you pass the class, you get the passing grade, you can advance, it count towards your major, but it wouldn't affect your GPA regardless. And
Mm-hmm.
thank God I chose the extraordinary circumstance options because my GPA would have been obliterated. But nonetheless, like, when did you decide that this is not what I want to do anymore?
So it was a year and a half in when actually similar experiences. Your guys' chemistry department, our physics department was like the absolute freaking
Oh my
worst.
goodness
Like,
gracious.
like
Yeah.
every test, it was like it was you just needed to know like memorize like a bunch of formulas. You had like a whole page that you could like write notes on,
Yeah.
and all the questions were like impossibly hard. And it was so bad that they had to like every test was basically like a 30 to 40% curve. And I'm like, why do you guys keep
Is
making it this hard?
I think that
Yeah.
we can kind of touch on this. It seems that professors, some of them, they seem to equate attrition rate with quality instruction.
Mm,
And I get it, but at the same time, no, I completely disagree. I get
mm-hmm.
the logic. You need to gatekeep,
Yeah.
right? But this is kind of why we have standardized certifications to begin with. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about someone like me, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, whatnot, getting their degree, their bachelor's degree, and going out and building bridges. That's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
That
Mm-hmm.
that's you need at least like I think you need at least 8 years of supervised mentorship just about before you can even get your professional engineering license to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the same thing, we had one physics professor who this man's story is insane. If you know at George Mason, but this one professor during COVID got this reputation. He was always a really bad instructor,
Mm-hmm.
frankly. Um, he would be disrespectful to students and just really like belittle them or whatever or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he rose from Serbia,
Mm-hmm.
right? So he had an accent like this. If physics exam is too hard for you, do not worry. You go to school
Mm-hmm.
of business. And, like, I remember he was funny at
Yeah.
times, but like his instruction was just straight up him reading off the slides. And God help you if you asked a question because he
Mm-hmm.
would be. I remember I stopped myself from being brave one lecture and raise my hand and asking a question in front of 250 people or whatever, whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Someone else did, thank God.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, yeah, I don't get how this is. I think it was something that it was like forces at an angle. You're dragging the block
Yeah. Yeah.
across the
Yeah.
surface.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you gotta find do your free body diagram, list
Yeah.
all the different. Yeah. And someone was like, I don't understand how, like, if it's going down, it's gonna be the angle's gonna be in cosine, which I was like,
Yeah,
that's a very, that's a valid question.
yeah.
And his response was like,
Oh, jeez.
how do you not understand this? This is elementary.
Yo,
This,
fucking stupid.
this is yeah, very
Yeah,
much, yeah, I have
yeah, yeah,
spoken.
yeah.
Like, and I remember when we got to like free fall kinematics, you throw the
Yeah,
stone over the cliff, how long is it gonna
yeah, yeah,
take
yeah.
to fall over?
Mhm,
And I'm in his office hours. I'm like, he asked me the question like, what is this going to be? The distance for age or whatnot. And at the time I said it's gonna be Y. That's the exact same thing.
yeah.
And I'm like, it is going to be Y. And he was like, it's going to be H. That is the exact same thing it says in our textbook for our kinematic formula. That's the
Mhm,
exact same thing, sir. He's just like he's just not hearing it at all. Like he would
mhm,
send out emails to us, um, because it's COVID, people are cheating. Apparently, a group got busted for there was always a freaking group chat that got
mhm.
caught because someone ratted, and then people failed the class or whatnot. And ever since then, he became hyper paranoid, and we would just get random emails about I'm looking to see if people are using Chegg. Like, so whenever I hear like the Outlook chime, like
Oh,
for a new
jeez.
email,
Yeah.
the ping, I get a jolt. I get a jolt. I'm like, yo, man, what's going going on? Like, what is
Uh,
it now?
oh, jeez.
It's
Yeah,
it's insane.
yeah. Fight or flight trigger. Just the
Yeah.
yeah.
And this is when I decided to do the reverse transfer, it was the second time I took Gen Chem one
Mhm,
lab, just that lab portion,
mhm,
and I was shy 2.7%. And I'm like
mhm,
doing everything in my power to be like, look, there there's also a whole nother story with how Blackboard was literally cutting my submissions off in half and I was losing points. I let the instructor know, but she
mhm.
acknowledged it and still 2 points off regardless. I'm like, hey, remember when we talked about earlier this semester? And she's like, well, grades have been submitted, so you got to take it up with the department. Um, Submit a whole bunch of evidence or whatnot. I'm like, I documented this, let the instructor know. She's like, yeah, yeah. The department's like, yeah, flug bud. I'm like, you know what? We're leaving. I'm out.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until reverse transferring to community college that I realized like how bad instruction
Yeah.
um, we really got. And it seems that this is the case with a lot of 4 year low level classes or whatnot.
Mhm.
It's like they give the worst instructors the lower level classes.
Yeah.
And I remember I got to my community college and my soon to be professor, my soon to be engineering professor, uh, she knew my name before I even like got into her office. She's like, "Oh, you must be Romeo. It's nice to meet you. Finally, I got your emails." And instructions were clear.
Mhm.
Like, y- you know, professors were concerned with you learning the material. They
Yeah.
weren't like purposefully trying to fail you or whatever or
Mhm.
whatnot. They're like, "This is the material. This is what I want you to know, right? And here's the test."
Mhm.
It was still hard,
Mhm.
right? Because calculus 2, calc 3, differential equation, it's still the same at a community college.
Mhm.
It's just that we had better instructors
Yeah.
because we had an average of like 12 people.
Yeah.
This concludes my rant.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. So yeah, going into why I decided to transfer out of it. So I was kind of going through it with the physics, and I just didn't really feel like I wanted to be doing something like this for the rest of my life. And at that same time, I was also really getting into fitness, and so that story. And I dove into athletic training, dove into physical therapy, and just didn't really feel like doing those either. and then eventually just kind of landed in the realm of personal training and absolutely loved it because I could relate to the people that I was working with, and they were people like me who's just trying to get into better shape. And so I've been doing that ever since. And I'm a personal trainer, fitness coach, and ex engineer. I there are some times where I do think about like what would happen if I just continued down that path. But now I'm like, whatever, past.
I've yeah,
Yeah.
that's good because like I myself, like I at first it was for like, oh, I want to do this because I want to make money, I want to
Mm-hmm.
get a secure job. But the more I did research and delved into what civil engineering is, I'm like, this is engineering for the people, for for the common good or whatever or
Yeah.
whatnot. Like it's granted you could still do damage building a bridge or a road, but still for the
Mm-hmm.
most part, it's a net positive for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yeah, I'm gonna stick with this. But to your point of like, if this is what I want to do, like I know that when I did my internship, um, most of the people there, they were settling down, so to speak. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and one of my coworkers, he put it best. He's like, there comes a point in time where you have a family or whatnot. You've got the nice big house, you've got your car, you've got your toys, ATVs or jet skis,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But they're tired of working 80 hours a week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like all of my coworkers that have come over from the private sector, they were like, so much better. Like, like it's a cold or whatnot. I can actually spend time with my family now. It's great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that
Yeah.
that's been in the back of my mind. I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it's becoming a little clear. I'm gonna get work. I'm like, hey, it is what it is.
Yeah. I was gonna say,
But
what do you mean? You don't wanna work for the Department of Defense? You don't wanna be
I'm like,
like Lockheed Martin?
yeah, man. And even then, it's another thing I've noticed is a lot of people who are studying engineering, they have family members or immediate family members that studied engineering themselves.
Yeah.
Like that is a huge advantage for when you want to decide to do something technical as this. 'Cause myself, I'm a first generation college student, which
Mm-hmm.
the definition of that, neither of your parents, your mom or dad, have went to
Mm-hmm.
college. And
Yeah.
even with my grandparents, they did not go to
Mm-hmm.
college themselves. So I meet that criteria. The only reason why I'm studying engineering was because my uncle. That's literally it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've also noticed for our listeners that don't know, I'm black. So, like,
Really?
uh, yeah, we're underrepresented in engineering because there are a number of reasons, but we don't have a lot of people that pursue technical degrees like that because of um, schooling or prior schooling or whatnot, and lack of resources. And what I've noticed is that we tend to stick to ourselves. Like we don't really form study groups like that compared to other demographics in engineering. They know that they have to work together to get through it, and they
Mm-hmm.
form study groups. I even mentioned this with my professor. She's like, I'm not really seeing a lot. I'm seeing less and less people enroll in engineering in general. So there are less African Americans or people of color
Mm-hmm.
um, in engineering. Like, yeah, I'm not too surprised to hear that. But
Mm-hmm.
what I found interesting was that African Americans, we are overrepresented in other STEM degrees like biology. Um, biology doesn't uh, biology doesn't really pay that much, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
for fresh out. You think it would because it is literally um, a STEM degree. That's like right there with chemistry. It's difficult,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
It's not easy. You have lab experience or whatnot, but it doesn't
Yeah.
pay all that well.
Yeah. From what I remember, a lot of people go to biology for med school, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if people still do that.
Yeah, people still do it.
Mm-hmm.
what people are starting to realize now is that being going to med school, maybe they don't want to become a medical doctor, an MD, or a physician or whatnot. Maybe they want to become a physician's assistant or a nurse. Nursing has become
Hmm.
really popular, and people are noticing that you can go into nursing and get
Yeah,
six figures, like
yeah,
as a travel nurse. And you don't, some cases, you don't even need a bachelor's. You can just get an
yeah.
associate's and
Hmm.
um, take the NCLEX,
Yeah,
like the
yeah. There's
acronym
some
for
like
that.
accelerated programs out there now, and yeah.
Yeah, it, there's always going to be money in nursing or whatnot. But for
Hmm.
me, I did not like chemistry. I did not like biology. I'm like, that's not going to work.
Hmm.
That's absolutely not going to work. Also, the requirements for them. I have a good friend of mine. He's um, studying to become a nurse right now, and
Hmm.
you have to get like you can't get anything less than a B in all of your classes or whatnot.
Hmm.
And I think that's to like help ensure that not only are you paying attention and getting the material, but it's
Hmm.
also to help increase your chances for the national exams when you take them.
Hmm.
But going into it kind of ties into our main question. Do you think college is still worth it?
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say when it's all said and done. So as someone who has finished college, and then you can kind of touch on as someone who's like through in the trenches, if you will. And so as someone who's like been through college, like I will say that I won't agree that it's oh yeah, college is a scam and like we should abolish college and all that. I do think it is still worth it for people who want to pursue a specific profession. Like if your career field requires a degree and you and of like this is on you too that if you know that you getting that degree and ending up in the career path that you want, is that going to pay off and be able to pay off the student loans that you accrue, or do you make a smart decision about not accumulating as much debt, or yeah, just other things to kind of factor for yourself. And I don't think it's a scam if you know that going into it and you know that's going to be a good investment and that it will pay off. But I do think it's so multifaceted because the U.S. system is very different from other places in the world where university here is in fact like ran as a business where profits are
Yeah,
trying to be maximized. And now that the government can foot a portion of the bill, obviously as businesses they're like, oh, we're gonna try to milk the government for as much as they can, and so they inflate the cost of everything. And especially athletics programs, like they make a shit ton of money too, and that's
yeah.
something that a lot of people don't talk about. And so everything's just inflated, and college is a lot more expensive than it should be when it should be just providing the minimum education requirements for X person to get a degree and be able to graduate. But because of all the other factors, it's like, oh, we'll tack on this fee and we'll tack on this, and it just makes it
Like
so much more
capital
expensive.
fee,
Yeah,
auxiliary fee,
yeah.
cable fee, administration fee,
Hmm.
one time. I forgot what
Yeah.
it was called one time, one of my bills, but yeah, it's outrageous.
Hmm. Yeah.
So when
So
we,
yeah,
yeah,
overall, sorry, just this is my concluding
no, take
sentence.
your time.
Yeah, yeah. So overall, I don't think it's a scam, but I think the way that it's run, it is there are facets of it where it is a scam. And I do think overall people need to realize that like, and this is something because of the generation that we were brought up in, that we had this program to think like, oh, this is necessary if you want to succeed in life and have a good paying job and be able to retire and do all the things of the American dream. But now I think we're all starting to realize that it's not necessary. It's not a necessary step for a lot of people, in fact, to take in order to be
Right?
successful.
Yeah, and for me, I agree with that 100%. I'm basically, if I were to see someone in high school right now, I'm gonna be like, look, you better go into BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pick one. If it's something that you want to study, look it up in BLS and see what the outlook is for it. If there is positive outlook or expected growth, cool, go for it. You see the median salary, are you fine with that? So, go for it. But I I have because George Mason is known for they're mainly known for like cybersecurity, but they're also known for their government programs because it is literally right next to Washington, D.C.
Mhm.
And there, I had two close friends of mine. They were studying conflict analysis resolution. I'm like, yo, y'all are studying international politics. I'm like, we're going to call it international politics. But um, first off, night and day, like for how the departments ran and how they treat their people. I remember one of my friends, she was transferring over from like one side of it to another side of it,
Mhm.
and changing the name of the degree. It was a subtle difference or whatnot.
Mhm.
And they welcomed her in. They had already like got her transcripts over to her. They had already done like all the heavy lifting. All she had to do was just sign here, and date here, or whatnot. Whereas with engineering, it's like good luck. You
Mhm.
figure it out yourself. Anyways, but those types of degrees, they are very specific, but at the same time, it's like the only jobs that you can get with those um, are non-governmental NGOs, non-governmental organizations,
Mhm.
which are like charities or whatnot, government-run charities and
Mhm.
private charities or whatnot, and other things as well if you
Yeah.
market your
Like
degree right.
nonprofits. Is that
Yeah, nonprofits,
okay?
yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
And the thing is that there aren't a lot of openings
Mhm.
with those types of degrees because it's very specific, or it's either saturated or you have to have like a master's to even be considered um,
Mhm.
to begin with. And one of my friends, she's studying, she studied that, she finished recently,
Mhm.
and she studied that. And another one knows that he wants to go to law school, which law school just requires you to have a degree. Um, so do your research, know what you want to do, or have an idea of what you want to do beforehand.
Mhm.
Know which degree is going to give you the biggest return on investment. It's like there's a median between being absolutely miserable.
Yeah.
Huh. There's a median between, having a lot of fun in
Mhm.
something that you're passionate in. And it typically goes like things that are, in my opinion, the more interesting or the more fun, the less likely it is to pay. Whereas stuff that is more not as fun,
Yeah.
it pays more, but hey,
Mhm.
it's not all that enjoyable, so to speak.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to rule that out, do your research. I don't mean that in
Mhm.
a condescending way, but do your research.
Yeah.
And do your research and make that decision for what it is that you think you want to do, and it being able to pay off your student debt. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. Or even there's now I can say this as someone who does have student debt. It's like also don't be afraid to pursue other paths that don't require any sort of student debt. Like could be going to
welding,
community, yeah,
trades.
going to community college if you still want to go to college where it's significantly cheaper and you could probably
Oh,
get
I'm glad you said this.
yeah, yeah, and you can
Because
and you
there's
can
something else.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's so much like I did not realize how cheap it is until I actually took some courses and I'm like, wow, this is like a fraction of the price. Yeah,
It's night and day. Yeah,
yeah,
you're about to say
and
something?
yeah, and even pursuing yeah, like you said, the trades, uh, yeah, stuff that like growing up, it wasn't like it was like more frowned upon, like just blue collar work in
It's
general. I
not as
think in the
prestigious,
past, yeah, yeah,
quote
it's not
unquote.
as prestigious, yeah. But then it's like nowadays you can see like electricians,
They're
HVAC
making bank.
technicians, like yeah, making well over 6 figures a year.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
especially if they have their own business.
hmm
Um, it's not uncommon, and plumbing as well,
yeah,
because it's just everyone has been told. We've mainly for the most part been told to get like what's called a white collar job,
yeah,
and because that was what was paying.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
supply, demand, times have changed.
hmm
With community college, like I said before, reverse transferring, excuse me, reverse transferring to community college, I remember that kind of like threw my world upside down because I very much am like had a plan, and things are not going to plan or whatever, whatnot.
Mhm.
And even though that was the case, I quickly realized that I shouldn't say quickly, but I eventually realized that I'm right where I need to be here.
Mhm.
Because for one, I don't have to pay for it,
Mhm.
right? Which is great. Um, Two, I can work while going to school. Take that in small doses. That definitely will
Mhm.
add more stress.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that your experience may differ, but
Mhm.
there are also opportunities at community colleges that people want to go out and to give you an idea. Like I remember our engineering professor, she had posted like all the different engineering scholarships or whatnot for community college students and research opportunities. And there was this program called LSAMP. It was the Lewis Stokes um, African American or Minority Participation.
Mhm.
Lewis Stokes Alliance for Minority Participation. Um, and basically, what it is intended to have more minorities, more African Americans, Latino Americans, more minorities in research positions in STEM, um, and research in general. And so I applied to it, right? Like, no one, I guess this has just been posted up randomly. Like, this was just random word of mouth. It's like, hey, apply
Mhm.
for it. And the way it worked is that you submit your application, you submit a cover letter or whatnot. You know, you jump through the hoops, enter in your information, and you can have the option to do summer research at different institutions. And long story short, I got selected for it. Completely like did not expect to get selected for it. And not only did you get free room and board for the summer, I got free room and board for the summer. Um, got paid to do research and also got another like travel scholarship
Mhm.
um on top of that. So it was a resume booster and I got paid that summer to do research, which was actually fun. Also
Mhm.
got to fly out to Connecticut and present that
Mhm.
research.
Mhm.
And they explained that like how this program only I think the acceptance rate was only like 20%,
Damn.
which yeah, which was that kind of like sunk in with us like, oh,
Yeah.
wow. And it really demystified um getting an advanced degree, like a master's or a
Yeah.
PhD, where really all it is, it's you're doing research, you're taking
Mhm.
classes,
Yeah.
but you're learning how to do research and publish it.
Yep.
My point is with this, there are opportunities everywhere, not just at 4 years, but also at community college as well.
Mhm.
And we don't really think about it all that much because
Mhm.
community college is not glamorous. Whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And like I think there's something to be said about the whole like discovering yourself thing too. And there are
Mm,
like going back and like I definitely yeah, I mean now I obviously I can't go back and change it, but like going through college just thinking about my times. Obviously it has I have evolved to be a different person and I wouldn't be where I am today without those experiences, but also there are so many other ways to discover yourself and to like try other things without wasting literally hundreds of thousands of dollars.
if you know that you don't want to be there, if you know 100% without a doubt that you don't want to go, do not waste your time, your money, or your family's.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, try it out, try something out, trade or whatever, whatnot. But like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if you're hesitant, I'm gonna be honest with you. Just
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather you know what you want to do
Mm-hmm.
before stepping foot on campus or having an
Yeah.
idea. And it's also a great time to also, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
you know, try different things. That's how I got into
Yeah.
jujitsu
Mm-hmm.
or whatever or whatnot. It was just
Mm-hmm.
deciding to try it out. And
Yeah.
I remember like to relieve stress or whatever and whatnot. Like a freaking psychopath, I would just run run around
Mm-hmm.
campus or whatnot just to
Mm-hmm.
practice running for
Yeah.
ROTC. But I realized I was getting a lot of crazy looks, and the reason why was because sweat got into my eyes and it came
Mm-hmm.
into contact with my contacts, so my eyes looked bloodshot. So it looked like I just got done smoking weed or
Oh,
whatever or whatnot. Like, and I was like, one of my floor mates stopped me. They're like, Romeo, have you been smoking? I'm like, what? No, I don't smoke. I don't
mm-hmm.
smoke. And they're like, why do your eyes look like that? It was like, ah, it's the sweat. It's
Yeah.
literally the sweat in my eyes. Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
like, yo, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's
With that being said,
the
if you I know that we're sort of in different phases of our life, but with
yes.
that being said, if you were to restart like postgraduate Romeo with all the knowledge you had now, would you still take the same path?
Phew, hmm. I probably knowing like we get to keep the knowledge of like our past of everything that happened if we took our original route or like
Yeah, yeah. I get like up until now.
okay,
Like
yeah,
you
like
would. Okay. Yeah,
we
yeah,
go through our
yeah,
original timeline and then we just rewind back. Yeah,
yeah.
I would probably end up I would probably do I would go to my 4 year, but
Mm-hmm,
what I would do differently was that I go to the first institution, I would stay there, but I would
mm-hmm,
lobby to take that lab at the local community college and have it transferred over even
mm-hmm,
harder because at the time they weren't accepting that because of COVID
mm-hmm.
for whatever
Yeah.
reason. Um, I would have gone a lot harder to see if that could happen instead.
Mm-hmm,
But looking back at it now, a lot of the other higher level math classes weren't that good.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
mm,
Yeah. But
either,
you would still choose the same career path and
oh
also
yeah,
yeah, okay. Yeah. That's a good
I've
sign
stayed
then.
at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've stayed at it for this. I've had
Yeah.
an interest in it for this long, so I'm like, yeah,
Mhm.
either community college probably, or just like
Mhm.
probably do community college first. Actually,
Mhm.
yeah,
Okay.
get paid to go and then transfer over for your last 2 years
Mhm.
and just study um what your major is. And quite a bit of people actually did
Mhm.
that instead, so that they wouldn't have to go through the regular BS lower level classes,
Mhm.
which makes sense.
Yeah.
But all in all, community college is worth it. College is worth it as long as you know
Mhm.
what you want to study and that it's going to bring you a return on your investment. Because
Yeah.
the way it is now, with the way it is in the US, it is very much a hefty investment.
Mhm. Yeah. And
And
those student loans are predatory too. I don't know if you've
oh
accumulated
yeah,
how
they
much
are
you've
absolutely
accumulated. Yeah.
predatory. Like, and
Mhm.
especially the interest rates. And
Yeah.
I've seen people, they're like, I've paid off the principal, but now you have
Mhm.
to pay off the interest, and the interest is as much as a brand new car or a whole house. It's
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I know some friends in their like late 20s, or not late 30s, 40s, and they're like, yeah, I've been paying off my loans for the past over a decade, and it's the amount is higher than it's been since I graduated. I'm like, that's fucking crazy.
Jesus.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
ridiculous.
I think that's why more people are like, you look, I'm not paying my student debts.
Yeah,
Like, people are just like, I'm not paying. I'm just gonna stop paying
yeah,
or whatever or
exactly.
whatnot.
Hmm.
Uh, uh yeah, that it's really sad compared to other countries, the way that they run things.
Hmm.
That like I can say with seems that with South Korea, I spent a small time over there, and if you get a high enough score, you pretty much get more or less get a full ride, but they still have to pay for college over there.
Hmm.
Like, it seems that it is not that much different over there from over here, although
Hmm.
their attitudes, um, professors' attitudes,
Hmm.
it it still seems to be more or less the same. Like, we're pretty similar, but
Gotcha.
there's a greater emphasis on taking education seriously because it seems that
Hmm.
that is one of the very few ways for financial mobility.
Hmm.
but here in the US, we have a little bit more,
Gotcha.
not
Yeah.
just school.
Yeah. I'd be interested to hear your take on this because you spend significantly more time there than I have. And you actually got to like live as like the locals do. Like, what is their socio-economic like system? Because as I understand,
Yeah,
there's that whole like Korean War, and like South Korea was definitely backed by capitalist U.S. And so there is a
yeah,
sense of capitalism there. But in terms of like socialist programs or that like just socialism in general, like
yeah.
what is
So with South Korea, after the Korean War was over, even with the US there,
that?
um, there wasn't a lot of investment after the Korean War was over. South Korea was actually poorer than the North
Mm-hmm.
for a period of time. Then forget if it was, I think it was around the 60s, the
Mm-hmm.
mid to late 60s, early 70s, they had this thing called the Sema movement, which I forgot what the translation was. But basically, they became more attractive for foreign investment. Like they started off making wigs to sell
Mm-hmm.
to the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they started selling wigs and eventually they sold I think it was TVs and radios and then TVs for manufacturing. And so South Korea slowly came onto the map as an area for manufacturing. Um, and with the US's help, they're like, okay, the US is like, okay, you guys are building your country up. We're going to invest more into you. And that's
Mm-hmm.
when money started flowing in. And that's where you have the creation of these companies that were subsidized by the government. Um, and they were called the chaebols.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you have the typical, like, the prototypical K drama where they come from a rich family, but
Mm-hmm.
they refer to it as like a group or whatnot. Anyways,
Yeah,
so
the
to
East of
answer
the
your
West.
question, yeah, to answer your question, being over there, South Korea is hyper capitalist.
Mm-hmm.
Like they, I feel like there was more of an entrepreneurial drive and spirit over there compared to the US, but it's also because of
Mm-hmm.
different reasons as well.
Mm-hmm.
Being in Seoul, South Korea, that is like being in New York. And so, well,
Yeah.
I'm not leaking, I'm not doxing you.
Yeah.
Like,
You
you
know?
know,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute.
I mean, yeah, you can
You
see.
know,
The city is like this city's so big. Like you could say I'm in New York, and like people maybe will find me.
and so I'm pretty sure you've gotten used to like seeing supercars at random coming down the street or whatever, whatnot. And it's the same thing over there. It's just such a some sides are very rich, other sides not so much. There's a
Gotcha.
bigger entrepreneurial drive and spirit over there, in my opinion. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but it's kind of out of a necessity. It's not uncommon for people to have to work two jobs,
Gotcha.
um, on top of like going to school or making ends meet. And people my age over there, they have the same, um, I don't want to say morbid outlook, but it's not looking optimistic, because
Gotcha.
home ownership is essential for wanting to start a family. And contrary to what we see online and what I saw online on TikTok and the forums of Reddit, they want to have families, but you have to have a house first in order to do that. And it's just housing prices are just too apartment apartments are way too high right
Mm-hmm.
now. Like to give you an idea for the size of an apartment, well, it depends, but it's not a house is an apartment over there, and it goes for a mortgage payment. And they have this system where you pay off. It's kind of like condos, like a condo
Mm-hmm.
system. It's
Gotcha.
really unique to South Korea in that you pay up front or you pay like 30% of the apartment's or the house's value.
Yeah, like down
And
payment.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it's much higher. But
Gotcha.
because that down payment is higher, they get lower interest rates. And what the landlord will do is that they'll take that money and reinvest it into making other um, apartment buildings. So if you were to go over to South Korea, you're going to see lots of apartment buildings being made. But still, even though that's the case right now, housing is really high. And
Mhm.
that's from my Korean friends that I spoke with over there. They were like, that is really like the big hurdle. People not wanting to start families because it's just too expensive. It's
Yeah.
expensive to have a kid, even with the government incentives that they have. I think there
Mhm.
was like a one-time payment of 30,000 US dollars, and people are still like, that's not enough because
Mhm.
you because of how competitive it is over there,
Right. Right.
you are going to be investing a lot into your child,
Mhm.
as any good parent wants to.
Yeah.
You're going to be doing not only, daycare, which you got to pay for, but also after school tutoring, extracurriculars. It's
Mhm.
just a lot.
Yeah. Do you know the off the top of your head the average salary
Don't know what their average. It's
compared
lower
to
than the
South Korea?
US. That's because
Because
their
I
cost of
remember when I
living
was
is
the,
lower.
when I was there, I mean, yeah, everything was cheap, but then yeah, everything is in proportion. So I assumed wages were low.
It seems that like when we think of it seems like it's not the same as the US where over here we're starting to realize that blue collar jobs are making the money. That that is not it doesn't seem like that's still the case over in South Korea
Mm,
where they office jobs still reign supreme. It all
mm,
depends on which company you work for. If you get to work for Samsung, KB Bank, a big conglomerate, LG,
mm,
etc., then you have made it. You are set for life. You're going to be working yourself to the bone, but you're set for life. And the
mm,
chances of you getting those coveted jobs is only if you go to a top three university,
mm,
Sky, South Korea University, Korea University, or Yonsei.
mm,
Um, yeah, it's very competitive. The point being is that it is very competitive over there, and it seems to be more um more cutthroat because their population is off the top of my head, I think the calculation I did was like 6 times less than us.
mm.
So just more competitive over there.
Gotcha.
And the competition just doesn't really it doesn't help and it doesn't really want to create the environment where people want to have kids like that, at least while housing is extremely high.
Yeah. Google
It,
says average salaries converted to 35K US.
and yeah, for us, that's really low.
Yeah.
Um, but their cost of living is low as well.
Yeah.
They don't have to worry about um, paying medical bills for the most part. I think the
Mm,
exception they said was like dentists, but even then, still going to be cheaper. I think
mm,
I went to the dentist while I was over there, and paying out of pocket, I think it was for a regular cleaning was like
mm,
$70,
mm. Yeah. Do they
which
have a socialized medicine there? Or
they do. The
okay.
way it works is that each doctor, knows their own. So they basically bill the government,
Mm,
and the government will pay X amount of dollars back to the doctor for standardized procedures or
mm.
whatnot.
Gotcha.
Um, and everyone pays for the national insurance through their taxes. And if you
Yeah.
stay there long enough, even as a foreigner, you can take advantage of it. Um, if you're there for more than
Mm,
90 days, you fill out an alien registration card,
mm,
then you are entitled to uh, national health insurance because you're going to be paying taxes while you're staying
mm.
there.
Yeah.
So they have don't have to worry about health insurance.
Yeah.
Um, and the food is a lot cheaper over there and much higher quality.
Hmm. Yeah, that's the one thing that the U.S. still is still behind the rest of the world.
Yeah, like
Speaking of which, we
even
can talk about this in another episode. But
yeah,
do you know Theo Vaughn?
the name sounds very
Vaughn, he's a
familiar.
comedian. He's like this
Let
hillbilly
me
comedian
Google
dude.
him.
He is
He sounds very familiar.
yeah.
Yeah. I've
I
seen
mean,
him on TikTok.
I love, yeah, I love his bits. He just says out of pocket stuff. But he had Bernie Sanders on recently, and they just
How did
talked
that
for like
go?
an hour.
That sounds like a fever dream.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at him on Google right now. Yeah, I've seen his clips. He's like he's, he's also the guy that's like, I love it when you pet a dog or whatnot, and they come back to you without petting them or something like that.
Hmm.
But yeah, he had Bernie Sanders on. What they really talk about? Or were they just like chatting? Was he really chatting about
Mainly,
socialism
I
or
mean,
what?
yeah, he kind of talked about like the elections and just like the truth about like how rigged the system is, and his platform, his main platform that he wanted to uh, nationalize like the healthcare system, and how he would go about like unraveling this mess that we got ourselves into, and all that. And
Yeah,
basically his take on like the current election events and all that kind of stuff too.
I think what it, I'm starting to like realize is that the systems that we have here, I forgot what it's called, but it's like there's basically a cap on like how many doctors there can be in the US for
Hmm.
each year that can graduate each year.
Hmm.
So by capping that number, you know, creates scarcity.
Hmm.
Demand is always going to be high. Um, but my point in mentioning this is that it's like we are always going to want to feel special.
Hmm.
And then like, if I have a job or whatever, like let's say when I do graduate, I get out into the workforce. Do I want to have the option to like snap half of my competition out of the pool,
Hmm.
out
Yeah.
of the job market, and wages would go up for me, but the public safety and public infrastructure would go down in general.
Yeah.
It seems like it's a case of that where, people want to create that artificial um shortage so that a few group of people can get paid higher, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Like it's it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
We have talked quite a bit, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Like all in all, college is still very much worth it. It
Hmm.
depends on. I think the thing that concerns me the most with is college still worth it is that like more people are saying that college isn't worth it, but they're not going with the alternatives
Yeah.
like trade school or starting your own business or whatever, whatnot.
Hmm.
But thing is that you need some sort of certification or skill,
Hmm.
and trying to be an influencer, I don't know, man.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, oh, jeez. Yeah, this is something else we could go into. I'm like, I don't know. People don't like just because you don't go to college, it doesn't mean it's not going to require work. Like to go down a career path, or you're still going to have to work your ass off. I know we'd even say for, yeah, at least around the same amount of time, like 4 years, 4+ years to build something. Like it took me about that same time. Yeah, and this is after I graduated to really like hone in on like my business and do all that.
Well, even then, like, when did you decide that you wanted to do like your own freelance or your own business? And I shouldn't say
2020
freelance.
when I graduated, and
When
that
the
was from
pandemic hit.
yes, when the pandemic hit. Yeah, because I remember I was working on campus still as a trainer on campus, and then everything was going well, and all of a sudden, shit hit the fan. We were like, oh, COVID, we gotta shut everything down, and we can't go anywhere. We gotta stay at home.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen the meme. It's like we're extending the 2 week break for spring break or whatever. We're
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, another two
yeah,
weeks.
yeah, exactly. Two, or is it two? Oh, 2 weeks will flatten the curve.
Yeah, it's just like another 2 weeks out. Yay. I remember like the moment, um,
Yeah.
the exact moment where it hit the fan, like at least in the state of Virginia where I'm at.
Hmm.
Um, I was over at my friend's house, it was, three of us. We were in his backyard
Hmm.
sparring and boxing or whatnot, and we were taking a break
Hmm.
and just enjoying the scenery. It's a beautiful day. And then
Yeah.
his dad comes out into the backyard. I was like, hey, the governor just issued a lockdown order, so y'all gotta go. Respectfully, y'all gotta go. And
Hmm.
I'm not joking, like 5 seconds later, my grandfather calls me and like, hey buddy, the governor just issued an order for a lockdown, so get home ASAP.
Jeez.
And nothing was the same ever since.
Yeah. And here we are. Like,
Oh,
it's crazy to think about, man.
it's
Last
been
4 years.
four
Yeah. Yeah.
years. It's been
Four
over
years.
4 years.
Nuts.
I'm starting to realize that time truly does fly. The
Yeah.
older you get.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like
This
I'm
past four
7
years, it felt like a
nonstop.
fever dream. Like, did it really happen?
It's,
Yeah. All
well,
right.
no, I think,
But anyways,
yeah,
yeah. I
I
think
think
that's
that
a. I
just
think. I
about
think
does
that's
it.
a. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good. It's a good time to wrap it up here.
Well, wherever
So
you may be, wherever you're at, thank you very much for listening with us. Hope you had your thinking cap on. Hope you enjoyed it.
yeah.
Have a good
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. Leave us a good review. All
Yeah.
right. Peace out. And
It's,